I don't know why exactly, but whenever I talk about equalizers, I get frustrated. So I've been kind of fretful over making this video because there's no way you can make a decent vocal effects guide without mentioning parametric equalizer at least once. But there comes a time in every man's life when you have to step up to the plate and swing your sports metaphor at the racket and Batman facing your fears or something. Let's get undone. What is happening, Donk Squad? I'm Gerald Undone, and today we are on the promised part 2 of the audio series, where the focus today is on audio effects and processing. If you watched the first video, it means you've got your physical steps in order, you know how to mic yourself, and you know how to speak and project your voice into the mic. So 90% of the battle is already won. Now we just need to improve it just a tad, just to pull a little extra crispiness out of that vocal bacon. So to make this whole process a little bit easier, I'm going to give you 3 usage scenarios, and we're going to record them right now and then apply the effects to them. This first take is going to be the usage scenario where the power in your vocals is inconsistent. So let's go ahead and record that now. This is an example of delivering an inconsistent power in your vocal performance. Example number 2 is going to be when there's a frequency in your recording that has an obvious need to be touched up with an equalizer. This is a small room in which my voice booms at 140 hertz. You'll see what I mean about that booming thing when we get to example number 2. Okay, and lastly, we're going to work on reducing some background noise and getting your vocals to cut in through the mix a little bit better. So for this example, I'm going to move my mic a little bit closer to my computer so we can pick up some of that computer fan background noise. And also it'd be an example of where you're recording a little bit too far from the mic and too close to an object that you don't really want to be recording from, and how we're going to deal with that. Now, that should never come up, because if you follow episode 1, you'll know that you want to talk into the mic and have the mic up and away and close to your face and away from the noise. But let's just say you're dealing with something like that. I'll give you sort of some rough tools on how to deal with that. So I'm going to move the mic over here now. My mic isn't near my face like it should be, and there is audible noise in the background. All right, now let's pop these open in Premiere and fix them on up. All right, so we got these open in Premiere Pro, and like I was saying in the first video, I often record straight to the camera. So this will also be an example of the quality of that if you were interested in how it sounds straight to the camera versus if I record through my interface. Anyway, I've got the 3 examples here, 1, 2, and 3 in order, and let's listen to them the way that they are, and then I'll show you how to deal with the issues that arise. This is an example of delivering an inconsistent power in your vocal performance. Okay, so pretty obvious what's going on here, right? We're jumping all over the place from -12 to -3 dB, and it's no good. So the fix for this one is a compressor. That's generally how you go about it. There's a few other ways to handle it, but the easiest one, and that's what I want to give you guys, some simple tools that you can tweak a little bit more reliably without delving in and messing your voice all up. So one of the ones that I like in Premiere Pro that I've messed with quite a bit, I have a preset for it already, but I'll show you what I do. So this one is the tube modeled compressor. So you can find it by typing in tube, and tube modeled compressor will show up. You can drag it and you can drop it down your clip here, or you can drop it over here. Then there's some settings you can adjust. You can either just open up this individual parameters and type them in here, or there's a bit of an interface that if you click edit will come up. And if you play back the clip, this is an example of, you can see the interface will show you, your levels and stuff like that. So there's presets in here that you can use, like radio leveler or vocal booster, stuff like that. I set my own numbers in here, but I started off with the radio leveler. They'll all set a different attack and release. Attack and release is kind of like the ins and outs of it. So how quickly does it bite on, and then how long does it take for it to kind of let go? That's what attack and release is. The default one is 10 and 100, 10 milliseconds attack and 100 milliseconds release. If you choose one of the defaults like radio leveler, they go 62.2 and 2000 milliseconds for release. And in this, you might find that it works really well right out the gate with the threshold and the output gain and the ratio and stuff like that. It's a pretty decent preset, the radio leveler. Now the preset that I made is very similar to the default radio leveler. I just changed the threshold to -10 because I found, so the threshold is where the action kind of starts. So when you play back the clip, you can see where your regular nominal voice is, and then when it drops down, and you can kind of try to set the threshold in and around that point. For me, it was around -10. The output gain is how much sort of extra volume is going to be added, and then the ratio is the multiple of that, so 3.5 to 1. That's sort of like the amplification ratio or multiple. So for me, I found that setting, the ratio between 3 and 4 works well. And then the output gain for me based on the levels that come in from because I record at a similar volume pretty much all the time. So I knew how much gain I would want to add to my dips just from experience. But you'll see that they're not that different. Usually an output gain of anywhere from 3 to 6 you see a lot of, thresholds anywhere from -10 to -12 you see a lot of, and then ratios from 3 to 4. So let's just give that a listen. This is an example of delivering an inconsistent power in your vocal performance. Now, if you really, really needed to fix something like that inconsistent power part, there is a way in which you can do it manually. So we'll see how the waves drop right here. That's obviously where I say inconsistent power. We can put some keyframes down. You could just press P for the pen tool, and you can click right on the timeline where your dip is. So say here, and then we'll give it a point of where we want it to raise, so that's a bit smoother. And then if we take this whole mid-line here and raise it up, let's add close to 4 decibels. What we're doing here is we're ramping up, keeping the volume a little bit higher, and then ramping back down. And that'll be a manual adjustment to aid the compressor in that part. Let's listen to it now. This is an example of delivering an inconsistent power in your vocal performance. So see how the inconsistent power wasn't as dippy now? So those are two different ways, and you can use them together, a compressor and manual keyframing adjustment for your audio in order to get more of a consistent delivery. Okay, that's case 1, but let's move on to case 2 now. This is a small room in which my voice booms at 140 hertz. So this one's a little bit harder to hear in the headphones, and I don't know if it's going to translate extremely well through the YouTube video, but basically when I listen to that, especially if I listen to it through my monitors, because it'll be amplified even more by the room has a limitation on it where the size of the wave, this is that EQ stuff that gets me so frustrated talking about it, is very similar to the size of my room at 8 feet tall. So what's happening is it's getting more and more amplified as it goes, and it creates this kind of like resonance, like woo, and it makes that weird sound that's really annoying. And it's because my voice often hits that frequency. I just did it. I could hear it when I said really annoying, woo. There's a sound where it booms in here. And so what you can do is, using the equalizer, is you can pull that down a little bit if it's in the mix. Now you never want to do this to treat a room problem. This is one of the issues with an equalizer, is say that nobody else had this problem when they listened to it in their rooms, and then I treat it to treat my room, which means I'm always pushing down 140 hertz. My mix could actually be weak in that spot, and I just can't hear it because my room isn't treated properly, or the room size is just poor for this situation. So you never want to use it as a treatment. But if the mix itself is booming in one spot, that's one of the advantages of using headphones, is obviously you remove the room scenario you put in your head. If you can hear it boom in your headphones, then it's okay to lower the output, don't try to change your environment with an equalizer, but you can change the output using equalizer. So just go up here to effects and type in equalizer, and you'll see parametric equalizer under audio effects. Put that on your clip, and then when we go to edit in this one, we'll see another interface again. Now basically what these are, if you've never used an equalizer before, these are the points that represent which frequency you want to either increase or decrease. 140 hertz, I just happen to know this. So let's say that we wanted to play with 0.2 here. This is where we were going to take down the 140 hertz. You can see it's 0.2 because the number 2 is right here. Ignore these number 2s. That's the Q width. That's how much it's going to affect the frequencies around it as well, how wide the dip will be. So we're going to go to number 2, and we're going to change this to 140 hertz. So now it's slid number 2 over to the 140 hertz line, and we're going to reduce the volume of there. That will reduce the boominess. We'll just take it down to -3. These are the kind of increments you want to work in. -2, -3, that's not enough. -4, -5, -6. But don't just come in and go like -20. You're just going to cut out a whole section of your audio. There's sort of a rule of thumb when it comes to this, which is that whenever you're cutting a sound, you want to cut it very narrowly, and whenever you're boosting a sound, you want to boost it widely. If your amplitude is going to go up at a certain frequency, you want it to sort of smooth up to that frequency and back down. But if you're trying to remove something, you want to cut narrow, because you don't want to get rid of a whole lot of your sound, of your entire sound profile. You don't want to remove a big chunk of it. You want to move just the sliver that you don't like as much. To better illustrate this point, I'm going to set it back to Q, and I'm going to set it quite deep, the plunge. I'm going to set it to -20. Now with a Q of 2, you can see that it's affecting everything around it. So this would be no good. We don't want to droop all these frequencies in here and in here. We're going to lose a whole lot of our audio. So instead, we're going to set the Q number higher. The higher the Q number, it's like having a smaller amount of hertz, and it's reversal. So I'll show you back and forth. So with width, you see how it's at 70 hertz, and the Q is at 2. If we set the Q to 5, it's It's only 28 hertz. So the width goes down as the Q number goes up. Make sense? I mean, maybe not, but when Q goes up, width goes down. When width goes up, Q goes down. This is a bit better, but we could probably do better than that still. If we set the Q to say 10, that would be considered, you know, pretty narrow, and then 20 is hyper narrow. So this would be an example of really sort of isolating the frequency we want to take out. But the settings I'm going to go with is I'm going to go with 140 hertz, minus 4 decibels, and about a 20 hertz width. Now this is going to represent a decent droop in that boominess. Now I'm going to play it back. Again, you may not hear it that well. I know my voice better than you guys do, probably, but let's listen to it with the equalizer on now, okay? This is a small room in which my voice booms at 140 hertz. So listen to it again with the equalizer off. Room in which my voice booms at 140. And again with it on. Room in which my voice booms at 140 hertz. Were you able to hear it? So that's how you use the equalizer to change the potency of certain frequencies. Now there's a lot of things that can be done in the EQ, but there are some cheat sheets out there that will help you kind of understand how the different areas of your voice are affected by the different frequencies on the EQ. And there's one that I found that I think is pretty decent. It's by ultimatevocalformula.com. You know, shout out to them because they're the ones that made this. But basically if we look in here, it shows you from all the way from 50 hertz up to 15,000 hertz what to expect, roughly, because depending on, you know, the tone of your voice, whether you're male or female, how deep or high your voice is, these things are going to have different impacts, obviously. The things that are written above the line are what happens if you boost that frequency, and the things below the line are what happens if you lower that frequency. So for instance, between 75 and 100 hertz, they say removes unwanted noise. So a lot of people you'll find will actually put a filter on that will just completely curve the line down to nothing. Now to show you how to do that in Premiere Pro, come over here, there's this little high pass button here. If you click on that, it adds the high pass, and then you can set it to where you want it to start. So if we set it up to say 80 hertz, at minus 24, then it's going to make a steep cutoff there that starts cutting off around 80, and then by the time it gets to 50, it's quite a bit lower. You can set that to be less dramatic if you set it to minus 18 or minus 12. That kind of changes the slope of it. It'll also change the slope of it if you change the frequency of it. But if you're aiming, a lot of people suggest that you aim for about after 100 hertz, it starts to roll off. The voice isn't going to really offer much below 100 hertz, so you're really just allowing junk in that you don't want in the audio. The same thing goes for the upper end too. A lot of people will roll off everything past like 10,000 hertz because up there you're just going to get possibly like high frequency noise and sounds that get carried through the air that isn't in your voice. So you just cut those two ends off, and then the shelf is more of the active voice. Reduces some noise that way as well. We'll get into noise reduction a bit more in the third step, but that's just something to know about it. Now if we jump back to the chart here, it'll show a little bit more. You know, the 100 to 150 hertz, if you boost it up, you can add some warmth and fullness to the voice. If you lower it down, you remove boominess, small room resonance. That's what we were targeting. The 140 hertz, that lower D sound, that's what we were targeting here. And it just goes on from there. You know, this is the nasal tone zone. This upper zone here, if you raise that up, that's how you can add a little presence, a little crispiness to the voice. But if you lower it, you can remove a little bit of that annoying kind of like toast sounds, stuff like that comes up a little bit more pronounced in those frequencies. Yeah, so find yourself a cheat sheet if you want to know a little bit better of, you know, where to play with the areas. Like I said, this stuff is completely vast and every voice is different. There's so much you really just have to spend half an hour to an hour, maybe longer, you know, with a good audio setup and just go through, listen to a clip over and over and over again and adjust the bands. But keep in mind that you can fatigue your ears doing that, so you might have to take a break and come back and do it again. But if you really, really, really want to EQ your voice, so it's like that sounds as good as my voice can sound, you know, you're probably going to want to use one of these cheat sheets and get a better understanding of how your voice fits on the equalizer. But just keep one thing in mind: do less, do subtle, start small, start with small adjustments. Because if you go in and you move all these things, you're like, oh wow, that voice sounds really cool. Yeah, maybe it does. But ear fatigue is real, guys. If you listen to the same sound and it's kind of like an annoying sound over and over, say for a video, maybe make a 10-minute video and you didn't realize that you had too much presence in your voice. By a few minutes in, the viewer might start to get like this, like, what is this sound that's really high sentence? And maybe it sounded cool in the beginning, but then it just gets really annoying. So you want to do things subtly. You don't want to over digitize your voice. You don't want to add too much like reverb. You don't want to do anything that is going to be an annoying factor. Now the other thing is, once you get the equalizer to where you like it, you can save this as a preset. That's what I keep doing. So if you you go in here and you've got all your little adjustments in and you like it quite a bit. You go through, you right click on Parametric Equalizer and you hit Save Preset and you type in something that you'll know what it is. Best EQ. And you press OK and it gets added up here to your presets, Best EQ. Now you can just drag and drop that on your clips that you want to apply the same equalizer to in the future. Before we move on to the third clip, I want to talk about joining two clips together. A little audio transition stuff. So audio transitions are very, very important. Often they make only a subtle difference, but when you add them up over a whole video, it makes a significant difference. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put two cuts, because let's say this was a jump cut where we tried to change it so the sentence flowed together. So you know how when you sometimes record something and you make a mistake and the second part sounds great and the first part sounds great and you just want, or maybe you just have a piece that you're like, oh, I wanna cut that out because I don't really like that I said that, and there's 2 points here that I just wanna join them together and there's kind of like a jerkiness. Well, if you don't want to do some sort of weird, cross dissolve or whatever to get rid of the jerkiness, transitioning the audio can actually make quite a difference to reducing the impact of the jump cut. Plus, sometimes there's a popping sound when you in the audio when you cut two clips like that, and it can also reduce that sort of popping sound. And I'm just going to show you one really, really easy one of your best friends from now on. If you don't know it already, it's called constant power. So we're going to cut this one at something somewhat abrupt, okay? An inconsistent power in which my voice booms at 100. So it went from an inconsistent power in which my voice, and the volume from in which my voice, because it was already on a bit of a rise, has a lot of power to it, and the other one was trailing off. You'll often get that when you make a cut where you're mid-sentence with power and you're trailing off. So we need to sort of transition that. And what constant power does is it's kind of like a fade in, fade out, mixed together, so you get the fades on both sides that you want. Now to find this, just like everything else, go up into your effects and type in constant power. Maybe just power would work too. And you'll see it right here. Take it, drag it, and put it over your two clips like that, so it centers on the two of them. Most transitions, video transitions, audio transitions, this is what you're gonna wanna do. Now, we'll just play it back just like that, but then I'll show you how you can shape it just a little bit. An inconsistent power in which my voice... Okay, so there was no pop, but the vocal from the second clip started overlapping with the vocal from the first clip, kind of like, like a video transition where you would see the thing behind it. So what you can do in that case is you can shorten the constant power. You can just grab the top right corner of it and drag it in. When you make it shorter, it's going to draw less from the two sides, but you'll still smooth out any of the jumpiness in between. We'll play that back now. This is a nice little small improvement to remember. Constant power, make it smaller, and you're good to go. And power in which my voice... So do you see how it just kind of transitions a little bit better? It's still a jump cut, but it doesn't seem as abrupt. Okay, let's move on to the third and final example here. So what do we got? My mic isn't near my face like it should be, and there is audible noise in the background. Okay, so our levels are low, right? So we gotta boost them up. So when I was telling you about the order of effects previously, I said you do your EQ first and then you add the compressor, right? Well, if your levels are too low, you might find it harder to actually do an EQ and to do proper noise reduction and that kind of thing. So in the case of this, isn't near my face like it should be, and we're only getting around -18 to -15 dB. We're gonna wanna go and boost up the entire clip first. Now there's a couple ways you can do this, but an easy, sleazy way is just go in, hit audio gain, and click adjust gain, and we can add like 9 dB to this because we saw that it was down at -18. You want to aim for about -4, -3 as like your peak value. That's about as high as you get, but you also want to keep your range somewhat limited, so you're really between like -6 and -3 most of the time. You don't want to go from -12 to -3, but you don't want to ever go to 0 because that's clipping, that's no good. So I put a little audio on the beginning and the end so you could actually hear what the noise sounded like by itself, because once we raised the volume of the entire clip because the mic was too far away, we're also raising the volume of the noise as well. So let's listen to what just the noise sounds like. So you hear that noise, it's just kind of like a background fan humming, electronics noise. It's a very common one that you'll have in household environments. And there's a couple ways that we can deal with it. When it comes to the workflow, generally you want to deal with the noise first, because especially if you're using the one that I'm going to suggest, which is the adaptive noise reduction, it works best when it has a constant situation to work with. If you apply, say, something like a compressor, which is adjusting the levels, it's not going to have a sort of static noise floor in which it knows how to use its algorithms on. So it's better to put the noise reduction on first, then EQ, then use your compressor. So just type in noise reduction, and if you just drop that on, the way that it works is it kind of figures it out on its own. It takes a couple seconds for it to kick in. So often you'll play a clip Did you hear how it started and then disappeared? Listen. So it goes, hey. It takes it like a second or two for it to click in. Now I find that when you render the video out, it won't do that. It's just when you're playing it back that you'll hear the in and out thing. My mic isn't near my face like it should be, and there is audible noise in the background. Noise reduction does have an effect on the voice, obviously, because there's frequencies that the noise is operating at that your voice also overlaps in those frequencies, and the vocal, the parts of your vocal that are in the same frequencies, they're obviously going to get like attenuated in a way in which it's going to affect the way your voice sounds. But sometimes if the noise is terrible, it's better to have a little bit of a nasally voice that you can hear very clearly versus a voice that's being completely obliterated by background noise. Anyway, that's the adaptive noise reduction. You just put it on. If you click edit, there are some settings you can do in here, and there's also some presets. You can fine tune it if you're good at it. It's in there. Otherwise, you can just throw it on, and it kind of works for a lot of purposes, sort of just out of the box like that. The other way, the newer way, is there's a new thing it's a similar one that was in Audition before. A lot of the old tutorials, I know that a lot of viewers hate it when tutorials do this, but they're like, we're going to show you how to fix background noise in Premiere Pro, and then it's like step 1, open up the clip on Adobe Audition. It's like, you said Premiere Pro, you son of a bitch. Anyway, so this one, they've now moved it from Audition to Premiere Pro. So if you go up to Window, there's Essential Sound is a tab here. If you open up the dialog box, there is a section called Repair. And if you pull that open, there's Reduce Noise. Now this is more like standard Adobe fare, it's just a slider with how much power you want to use. So let's hear what it sounds like with it just at 5 right in the middle. My mic isn't near my face like it should. Only use as much as you need. The more that you add, the more effect it's going to have on the vocal, so only reduce as much noise as you need to reduce. Something interesting about that is that if you look at the clip here, when there's nothing on it, you'll just see the default audio effects. But if you go into Window, Essential Sound, Dialogue, Repair, as soon as you check off Reduce Noise, you'll notice that over in the effects on your clip, the adaptive noise reduction effect gets added, the same one that we added before, and it gets tuned up based on, you know, the new tool, the new Essential Sound tool. It just gives you sort of a simple slider to play with, which is a lot more intuitive than the crazy settings that I showed you earlier. So then once that's applied, you can go back in at the preset for your vocal EQ that you made, put that below the noise reduction, and then at the very end, we're gonna throw on the compressor that is set up the same way as I said before, and then we'll just give this clip a playthrough and we'll see what it sounds like with the noise reduction, everything on. My mic isn't near my face like it should be, and there is audible noise in the background. Now, it doesn't sound near as good as when I talk directly at the mic, but it sounds a hell of a lot better than it did when we started. My mic isn't near my face like it should be, and there is audible noise in the background. Alright, that's it for me, guys. I hope you found this video entertaining or at least helpful, and if you did, make sure you drop it a like, subscribe, and consider sharing it with somebody else who also might find it helpful. But if you did not, however, find it helpful or entertaining, feel free to hit the dislike button twice. Alright! I'm done.